Alright guys, so I'm excited about today's video because it's on a type of product that I don't feel like we really talk about enough, and that is IEMs. And the pair that we're going to check out today is the Moondrop Arias. And technically I would call these the Aria 2s because this is the 2021 updated version. This pair does come in at 79 bucks. So on the Moondrop scale, this is more towards the lower price point, but I really don't feel like they held a whole lot back when it comes to this pair. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what all comes inside the box. We're definitely going to talk about the sound, and we're going to see why I feel like this may be the best sub $100 IEM that you can buy. But before we get into that, I do want to quickly talk about the company that I picked these up from. Now, this is not a sponsored video. This isn't an ad for them, but I want to draw focus to companies like Apos Audio, which is where I picked these up from, because it's a company that's solely focused on audio. In fact, they actually work directly with the manufacturers. They price match any price that you can find out there. You get free shipping. They also give you 2-year warranties, so they're adding like an additional 1-year warranty on top of the manufacturer's warranty, and it's an American company, which I feel like they're a lot like Drop because they even have released their own product, which is the Caspian open back headphones. But that's just all I want to mention about them. But it's important to support companies like this so that we can get better deals. And when companies are working with manufacturers, it just helps out all these audio companies all around. So now that we got past that, we can jump right back into the Moondrop Arias. First, let's go ahead and talk about the look of these, because if you're familiar with IEMs, a lot of them have real flashy designs, they're real colorful, and this pair decided to go a different route. It's very subtle, it has a matte black finish. In fact, it's sprayed with a metal finish. It does have some gold accent lines on the outside, but they've also injected metal into these as well. So if durability is a concern, you don't have to worry about that with this pair. And also they matched this with using a silver plated cable that is wrapped in a black fabric. So black fabric on the cable, that's the braided cable, mixed with a matte black IEM, makes this a very subtle IEM to go with. And that's the look I usually prefer. And I do want to say that I'm not the biggest fan of the material of the cable on these. I do feel like it got tangled up a little easier than some of the other cables that I'm used to, but it is using the dual pin connection, so you can easily go out and find a replacement cable. In fact, you probably already have one that you can replace it with if you're not a fan of this cable. But they've also included a little zippered case, which is also black. This is somewhat of a hard case, so it's keeping anything from crushing these. And they've also included 6 sets of ear tips, so you won't have any problem finding a set that will fit you. Now, as far as any of the insides that these are using, they do have 10mm dual cavity magnetic drivers, and they're using an LCP diaphragm. So this is a liquid crystal diaphragm. They also have filters so that it's keeping your ear wax and things like that from affecting your audio quality. Now, one thing that I do want to talk about before we get into the sound, inside the instruction manual, it does recommend 100 hours of burn-in time. Now, I don't think you necessarily have to do 100 hours, but I will say burn-in is very important with this pair because out of the box, this is a very harsh sounding IEM. I think there's a lot of emphasis on like female vocals and cymbals where it has that hissing sound with S's. I felt like the longer that I had music just play through them, it definitely calmed that down, and it also kind of brought out the low end a little bit more. Now, this is not a bass heavy IEM, you know, especially if you're a bass head that likes that subwoofer type feel, but this does still gravitate a little bit more towards bass than a lot of other IEMs, so it does have a nice slight rumble to them. I feel like the bass impact is pretty punchy, it's quick. It's not something that's just coming in and destroying your mids and your treble, because I really do feel like the mids on these are some of the best mids that I've heard on any audio product that I've tested. I felt like vocalists always sounded up front, whether it be male or female vocalists. I could just hear all of these different characteristics. Acoustic guitar just had a lot more substance to it. So if you're somebody that listens to things like metal, everything just sounds nice and clean. So it didn't allow the bass to kind of come in and muddy or get anything congested. And you can easily switch these over to pop or hip hop or country or classical, and they still hold their own, which is very impressive, especially for an IEM in this price range. And another thing that I really enjoyed about these is the treble. Again, once the burn-in kind of calmed these down a little bit, the treble still had a nice clean sound to it. It does have a brighter sound, which I feel like just kind of mixes with the mids and the bass on these perfectly. And this is also with me plugging it into my ARC MK2 amp. This is just the amp that I use for pretty much anything at my desktop. But if you don't have an amp, this is one of those pairs that doesn't really require power. You could plug it into your phone if your phone still has a headphone jack. You could plug it into the Switch, which honestly, this sounds fantastic using these with the Nintendo Switch or your gaming controller. It just doesn't require a lot of power, which is very important. Another standout thing about these is the soundstage and the sound imaging, because with this pair, you can definitely tell the separation between each instrument. But the way that they did these, it sounds really open on the left and the right. So it's kind of like, you know, to the sides, you feel like everything is spaced out and very open. But when things are in front of you, it feels like it's a little bit closer. I guess the best way to explain it as if the vocalist is right here in front of you, and the instruments are at a distance behind them. I think this kind of leans itself well with most genres. I didn't feel like there was any genre that it didn't work for. So it's not one of these IEMs that just sounds good for one type of music. So that is also a huge plus. So my overall opinion on these, it's pretty simple. I feel like this is one of the best IEMs that you can get for under $100. I feel like the sound is going to appeal to most people because they did lean on that Harman curve, which is your typical consumer U-shaped sound signature. And I think it's a nice transition if you're looking to get into higher end audio. It just shows you don't have to spend a whole lot of money. Obviously, Moondrop has IEMs, I think they go up to like $600 or $700. So this pair being 79 bucks and also having that really subtle stealth look to them, just becomes a pair of IEMs that I would recommend to a lot of people that are looking to get into it, or even people that are already into IEMs and just wants a nice pair to be able to use out and about and maybe doesn't want to use their more expensive pair. So yes, this is an easy pair to recommend whether you have an amp or not, whether you're into high-end gear or not. You don't have to spend a lot of money, and Moondrop did it again with the Arias, where I feel like it has a lot of value. So guys, that wraps up my video on the Moondrop Aria. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.